Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Folks, it's time to start on the big novel. Oh wait, no it's not. Remember, I'm trying to do this in chronological order, and before we get to that big novel, there's a few more stories you need to read first. I may even shock you this time around, who knows. It's time to read Catch That Pit Droid from Liza Baker. And in this is a story about Anakin just trying to catch a stray pit droid. Can he stop it? Would you care if he did or not? Who knows? But you have to find out in that book. Now, what is Star Wars Junior? Well, they were books that were sent out just as books that went to school libraries. That's the only way you were going to get one of these if you had a school library and Scholastic sold you one. In fact, on the back of this, I want to see if I can show you that to the camera. If you read the very bottom there, it says, this edition is only available to distribution through the school market. So if you had a school library, that's where you would get this. These are very hard to find and very, very, very expensive. I wouldn't suggest trying to collect them all. They cost a very pretty penny. Yes, obviously I have them, but that doesn't mean everyone should go get them. They're just little children's stories with pictures, illustrations. Sometimes they have stickers you can put in here. Some of mine have the stickers in, some of them don't. You see that big white blob there? That means there's no sticker there. But anyway, it was an extra story that happened outside the scope of the movies. If it happens outside the scope of the movies, that means it's expanded universe, and that means I have to have it. So there's a book you read prior to episode 1. Now the next one is called The Queen's Amulet. It was written by Julianne Balmain, and basically in this story the Queen loses her amulet and the handmaidens have to help track it down for her. Will she find her amulet? Oh, forget it. Anyway, it's a little children's book. It looks similar to this. It's a little hardback. It's got the actual amulet right there. Obviously, I think this book was made for little girls. It looks like a jewelry box. Inside is our little novel. It is a hardback, the smallest hardback on record, I think, here. And actually has a lot of words in here. I mean, it's not, they aren't big words. They're actually pretty big, little if you can see it there, but the pages are really nicely done. It's quality stuff. The story's not much, of course. What do you expect, right? And obviously this is made for little girls, to sell to little girls, because they get to read about the Queen's Amulet and actually have one for themselves and wear it forever like it's so special. I wonder how many girls still have their amulet to this day. Anyway, I remember seeing this back in the day. I passed it over because I knew what it was. When this is something to sell for little girls, I'm not interested. But then as I started thinking about it, and this is just actually a couple of years ago, I think it was 2013, you know, when Disney had bought them, I was like, I better go ahead and get everything I can. So I went ahead and bit the bullet and bought this. You can get this for very, very cheap. They're very, very cheap online to get a copy. Anyway, the next book is called Queen in Disguise. It's by Monica Culling, and basically Padme goes into disguise as a handmaiden and goes on a little adventure with her other handmaidens. And then at the end reveals that she is the queen. Ta-da! It's kind of foreshadowing the events that would happen in episode 1 is the reason for that. It says here it's a Jedi Reader Step 2, so grades 1 through 3. So I think we can all read it together. Yeah, see, I even get the children's books. If it happens outside the scope of the movies, I will get the children's books to it and read it as well. But we're not done, because after those 3 short reads, which should take you about, I don't know, 10 minutes to read, I still got one more thing. Won't even take up a full half hour, I bet. It's called the Podracing Tales by Dark Horse Comics. It was written by Ryder Wenham, and they came out around 2000, I think, just before Christmas. I think it was delivered as a Christmas present. Now here's the thing. I was way too busy around Christmas. I totally missed the announcement, and I did not copy and paste those comic strips. I didn't have them for the longest, and it drove me insane because I couldn't find anyone else who had them. But thankfully, if you go out and buy Wild Space Volume 2 Omnibus, it is in there. In fact, for me, that was the only reason I bought it, because all the other stuff, the Tag and Bink stuff, is basically infinities. Even though it is funny, I didn't really care for it. Any of the, farces or whatever. That's one of the issues I had with Star Wars Tales, I said earlier, because it had some infinity storylines in there that I didn't like. Making campy little funny stories isn't what Star Wars should be doing. Give me some good quality stuff that fits within the canon. That's what I want. And so with the omnibus, it had a few of those, infinity stories. And then it had just reprints of one-shots that I already had them all. I mean, I guess to the average collector, they probably couldn't find a copy, but those copies aren't that hard to find, in my opinion. The Jabba the Hutt books and stuff, they're still not hard to find. You can get them for pennies on the dollar. But Omnibus 2 came out. Wild Space 1 is excellent. Can't wait to talk about that one. But Wild Space 2 didn't have much to offer except for those Podracing Tales, and for that, I am thankful. I read them. They're all right. They talk about the pod racers. You get to know them a little bit better, which is nice, but I think I would have wanted a little bit more. I would have enjoyed a short story on them, a book, like Tales of the Pod Racers, I would love for them to have done some of those tales for the prequels too, and Podracing Tales definitely would have been a great collection of short stories I would have loved, still would love to read through if they ever made it. But the comic book gives you just a little peek inside their lives, not enough for me. Now, fun fact, that comic strip was originally intended to be some kind of insert into a fruit pack, like you bought, I don't know what fruit pack it was, but some kind of fruit snack pack, and they came with these little collector's items of the little Podracing Tales. You had to collect all 7. What a nightmare that would have been to collect, right? To get all 7, that'd drive me insane. Who would have kept those? Anyway, those are a collection of short stories that you will want to read before episode 1. Okay? That's all the time I have for today. We'll see you next week, and you know what book it's going to be about.